Hello, Ascension. I'm Bill Schneider, and I am this year's Stewardship Committee Chair. And I'm joined today by Pastor Joanne Post, as well as our Finance Committee Chair, Richard Kreutzfeld. Today, we officially kick off our stewardship season, which culminates in about 4 weeks on Sunday, November 22nd, right before Thanksgiving. So I received this in the mail today, a letter from Ascension. I always like getting letters from Ascension. And I opened it to find this nice inspirational letter about our congregation, as well as two pamphlets, one called Annual Giving and one called Legacy Giving. If you haven't received yours, don't worry about it. They're in the mail. Things are kind of slow right now, I hear, but you'll get it. So I'd like to start and talk about these things, and I'd like to start with Pastor. Pastor, can you talk a little bit about the letter that I received and why it's important?
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Richard. Good to see you guys, and good to see everybody at Ascension. This is the season when we typically come to you to talk about our ministry needs and our goals and our hopes. And so we're doing the same again this year, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic. So one of my concerns as your pastor is to assure you in every way I can that we are still committed to all the things we were committed to before the pandemic fell. Some things have had to change for us. Office hours are very different. Worship is very different. Many things are different, but the fundamentals of who Ascension is have not changed at all. So in the letter, I very briefly talk about our 4 big mission areas and how we're continuing to be committed to those. One of those is community engagement. You all have been so generous as individuals and as a congregation with the people we're in ministry with. I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert about the number in the letter, but we have been remarkably financially generous with our community partners, and that's a commitment that has always been central to who we are. Of course, another of our big commitments is attention to our operational life, and Bill and Richard are part of the folks who make that happen. That includes our staffing, our stewardship, our finance, all the things that make it possible for Ascension to continue. And we've not given up on any of those commitments, and Richard will tell you a little bit more about those financial commitments in a minute. We're still committed to excellence and faithfulness in worship and the arts. I hope you were able to join us on Saturday for the first of our Zoom One Tree Many Branches concerts. It was lovely. Worship has changed since we started. I just talked to our former vicar, Julie Grafe, today, and we were remembering those first 2 weeks of the pandemic. We thought, oh, this won't last. We'll just sit here in front of a laptop and talk to each other. And to then beautifully pre-recorded worship and now to live Zoom worship. Our staff, I always have loved them, but they are working so hard under extraordinary circumstances to make sure that our life of worship and the arts is still strong. And of course, we are committed to faith formation, to learning and teaching the faith. Having interns is part of that. Our Bible studies continue. We're hoping to do more with Vitality Talks. So the letter is an introduction to you before Richard speaks to you about our financial needs and goals, is to say Ascension is still here. Ascension is still strong, and Ascension is still committed to those 4 primary ministry areas. Bill?
Thank you so much, Pastor. You know, even in these times, we have so much to be grateful for here at Ascension. And one of those things that I'm grateful for is the excellent leadership of our Finance Committee. So Richard, let me turn to you. In these brochures, they both open with kind of the same paragraphs talking about church finances made simple. Looks like this outlines the way in which Ascension relies on financial gifts from our members to meet its mission. Is that a correct reading of that document?
Yeah, that's right, Bill. Oh, sorry, we're getting some feedback there. Yeah, that's right, Bill. The pamphlets are all about ways that people can give to Ascension, and we're bringing forward some ideas that people may not have thought about. But to start that out, we thought it would make sense to just say, what is our mission about? What are you giving to support? So we start with a brief reminder of that. Pastor has actually touched on many of these items already, the 4 areas. Within the pamphlets, we group it a little bit differently. We have 3 broad areas. One we call operations, which actually encompasses most of what, Pastor, you just talked about, the worship and the arts, the operations in terms of facilities and staff and so forth. So that's the first area. The way we support that is through the pledge campaign that we're starting right now. The second area that we outline is what we call vitality. To be a vital congregation, we believe it's important to help others beyond the walls of Ascension. So we are partnering with many different organizations each year. This year, the main emphasis is Holy Family School, and we're gathering money for that, as you know. So those are separate fundraisers. We put that under the banner of Vitality, and we do what we can to share our generosity and our gifts with others beyond the walls of Ascension. And then the third and last area is what we call sustainability. And that means we want to be vital in the long term and not just today, but we want to continue. That involves a number of thoughts that we need to consider. What does it take to remain vital? Certainly one of the key elements of that is keeping our facility fresh and updated and dealing with the replacements that need to be handled when something breaks, and maybe as well making some improvements along the line as well. And we've done a number of those over the years. There are those projects that are going on each year, sustainability projects. Most of them are fairly small, and we find ways to come up with money for that. Every now and then the needs get to be larger, and we do a capital campaign. So that is another way that we fund. So those are the three areas that we start with: operations, vitality, and sustainability.
That makes good sense. Operations, vitality, and sustainability. I can remember that, I think. So this time of year, though, we're focused really on the operating fund, right? This is our annual budget. So, Richard, is that right? And if so, can you give me give the listeners here a sneak peek into the 2021 budgeting process?
Sure. This is the time for gathering pledges and supporting what we're trying to do for next year. And a sneak peek of what that will look like is, it's a nice round number. We'll be somewhere around $500,000. That's where we are this year. Maybe we'll be a little under that, but looking at a preview of next year, we'll be somewhere in the area of $500,000. That supports our staffing, which is well over 50% of our total cost, just because staff are so vital to everything that we do. Facilities is another fairly significant cost, taking upwards of 25% of our total budget. Miscellaneous out-of-pocket costs to support the various ministry programs, worship supplies, Sunday school supplies, etc. That takes a modest amount, maybe 5 to 7% of our total. And then we, importantly, we do, to the extent we can, try to budget a tithe of our total income to support the larger church organization, specifically the Synod and the ELCA. So that's a quick preview, roughly $500,000 divided down into those areas. Things are changing a little bit with COVID and not being in worship in our facilities, for example, but our ministries are continuing. So some of the cost details are changing a little bit. Some are going up a little bit in this environment. Some are going down a little bit. Overall, it'll be about the same. Now, we will be holding a virtual town hall in a couple of weeks, and we'll go into details on that. So stay tuned.
I think that if I'm correct, I think that's going to be November 15th. So everyone put that on your calendar. We'll go into more details into the budget then. Well, one last thing, Richard, in these brochures, I noticed there's a couple of things about legacy giving and annual giving and ways to do that might be easy, helpful, and even tax efficient. Stuff I really haven't seen much about before. Can you give a little light into what's in the brochure on those issues?
Sure. The two brochures deal with two broad areas of giving. One is just giving within the particular year to support the annual budget as well as our other needs. And the other, as you said, is legacy giving. And that has to do with your wills and trusts and IRAs and so forth. So sort of your end of life planning and how you might distribute your assets. In each of those cases, what we're trying to do is put forward in kind of everyday language, hopefully fairly straightforward and understandable, some things, ideas that people can consider, things maybe some have not thought about and haven't gotten into the technical aspects of them. So for example, going beyond just giving in cash, you can give investments, investment securities, for example, that have appreciated in value. That's one of the key techniques that a number of people are using. Some people, many are not, and maybe they would find that this would be something to consider. So we're going to give some background on that in some programs to come, and that those have significant tax advantages over just giving in cash. That's just one example. So stay tuned. We'll be running programs over these next few weeks to give you some examples and illustrations and personal experience with each of those items.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. And like Richard said, we will be answering your questions. Some of them we want to kind of have answers for already. We're going to show you the answer. But if you have questions about any of this stuff after you read those brochures, please reach out to any of us and we'll try to get the answers in, if not in another Ask Ascension, in some other way directly. So that's all we have in the brief overview of the kickoff to stewardship season. Anything else you want to add as we leave, Pastor?
Yeah, I do. I want you to read something for us, Bill, from the brochures. One of the other commitments that we have at Ascension is to clarity of mission and to make sure that the way we spend our money and our time and our prayers is completely aligned with the way that we think that we need to be doing our mission. So in the middle of COVID, a group of us, and the council just approved it, said we need to look at our mission again because we have been changed by all of this in some important ways. So Bill, I think the new mission statement is in the brochure, isn't it?
It is.
And so why don't you do a meaningful reading of the new mission statement, and then I'll send us off after that.
I was never a good actor, but I'll do my best. Our mission is this, our new mission. Compelled by God's love for all creation, we faithfully seek grace and mercy in a broken world. Simple mission statement. We add on to that by saying, as a congregation, we live this mission through 4 ways. First, worship and the arts, joyfully praising God through worship, prayer, and music. Second, faith formation, creatively shaping disciples of all ages for lives of faith. Third, community engagement, intentionally partnering and generously sharing God's gifts with those who strive for justice and peace. And lastly, church operations, wisely stewarding the physical, financial, and human resources entrusted to our care.
Thank you, Bill. Many meetings went into that language and lots of talk. And I think the word that struck me initially was the mission statement starts with compelled. And so as we leave you this morning, or whenever you're reading this, we just want to remind you of how deeply committed your leaders at Ascension are to our mission and to you. That involves financial gifts. It involves your presence at worship and the arts. But we are grateful to you, and we now go compelled into the world and committed to whatever future God holds for us. So thanks, everybody. Keep asking.
Thank you.
Thanks.